Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Noah.
Hello.
Hey, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lisa?
Good, good.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lisa. Hi, John. Hi, Noah.
Yeah.
Neil.
Hello.
Sylvia, I like your background. That's how the weather feels right now.
Yeah, I had a rainy one too, but I thought, no, I think I'll maybe do something more fall, give us a little inspiration.
All right, we'll just give it a couple minutes, obviously, and then we'll get going.
Do we know if Commissioner Murphy's joining us today?
I believe she is. I have not heard that she's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming through? Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, Brittany. Oh, Commissioner Murphy.
Hello. Hey, Brittany.
Hey, hello, Brittany.
Hey there.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock and we have everyone on, so we can go ahead and get started. We'll like to call the meeting to order. Can we get a roll call?
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Moore,
Here.
Commissioner Savage,
Here.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Here.
Chair Lemus.
Here. Thank you. And then for the approval of the minutes, we have two, September 19th and October 10th. Are we all qualified to approve the minutes, or was there someone missing from any of the meetings?
I was
not at the
missing.
19th meeting, but I did view the video of the session.
Okay,
I was missing on the 10th.
on the 10th. Okay. Okay, so for the minutes of the September 19th, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September the 19th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. And then can we take a roll call on that?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Yes.
Chair Lemus.
Yes. And then we'll go to the minutes of October 2nd. If there's no questions, does someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of October 10th.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
It looks like we have a question about the minutes of October 2nd. So before we go into roll call, does Commissioner Murphy have questions on it?
Yes, my apologies. I got the two dates confused. I was not a part of the September 19th meeting, so if I could change mine to abstain.
I've changed that to abstain for Commissioner Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then returning to October 10th, we have a first and a second. I think, was it Neil or was it Commissioner Savage at first?
I did first.
You did the first, and then Vice Chair Hancock second. Okay, so then can we get a roll call on the minutes of October 2nd?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Abstain.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Yes.
Chair Lemus.
Yes. Okay, thank you. And then we'll move on to the next item, which is changes to the agenda. Have there been any changes to the agenda?
No changes, Chair Lemus?
Thank you. For the oral and written communications, I'm not sure if this pertains to the items received after the agenda was posted, or is it something different?
In Cotati, we generally do treat them the same, whether they're comments on the project that came in after the item was posted, or they're just a unique comment not related to anything on the agenda.
Okay, so we did receive, the agenda was updated. We didn't receive it in our email, but I saw that today the agenda was updated with different comments that came in after the agenda was posted. Did all the commissioners have a chance to review those? Or does staff have any other input on that? Okay, Vice Chair Hancock?
Yes, I did review them, but they're actually quite difficult in this format. So I actually had to download each message. It wasn't possible to read it online, but I did end up doing it. And I'll reference them when we get to the particular items that come up. So I think they were specifically about items on the matters at hand.
I did not get a chance, and nor did I get an email on those.
Yeah, I do not believe they were sent out by email. I think what happened, staff updated the agenda and included them in items after the agenda. So staff, what do we do in that case when commissioners do not have an opportunity to review them?
Well, we will have, Associate Planner Bus summarize them, and we will provide them, and also allow the commissioners to a chance to review them. We could take a moment during the meeting if the commission is comfortable, because it is important that the commission review all information pertaining to the decision before them.
That would be great.
Thank you. So any other questions before we go to matters at hand? So staff, would it be possible then to go through the item, and then after that, each item read the comments that pertain to it that we received? Or what would be the best approach for that?
Autumn, are you prepared to do that?
Would that be me reading the comments to the commission?
Or forwarding them if they have access to their email so they could have a chance to take a look. I thought they had already been sent.
Okay, yeah, I thought that they had been sent as well. There are 4 comments on the urban ag item and 5 on the general plan progress report. So I can take a minute to forward those right now. If you'd like me to do that, it'll take me a minute.
Yeah, please do. I think that's the best way for the commission to be able to get the information, especially in light of Vice Chair Hancock's comments saying it was challenging to get them.
Okay.
So then we should probably proceed with the first item, the urban agriculture ordinance. And meanwhile, Autumn will be sending the items for us to review.
So the only problem is I'm delivering that staff report.
Oh, okay.
So, so if that's what I meant. So if you will need to wait for a few minutes for me to forward the emails.
Okay.
So is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Let me take a few minutes. I'll do it as quickly as I can. They're kind of all.
okay, thank you.
Let me see what I can do. Hey, I'm sorry. This is going to take me more than a few minutes because I don't actually have at my fingertips an email list for the Planning Commission. I'm looking for it in my emails right now, but it may take me a minute. So. Okay, so Carrie is going to send them out. Would you like me to just proceed with the staff report?
Yes, and then what we'll do is maybe if commissioners need a little time after to review the letters in reference to the presentation, then we'll take a little time after as well.
Okay, actually, hang on for just a minute. I may need to assist Carrie. I'll be
okay.
Okay. Our apologies about that. We were under the impression that that those those comments had all been forwarded to the Planning Commission earlier today. So I apologize. But they are en route now.
I did receive them, so I'm hoping other commissioners also received them.
Yes, I just got them. Thank you.
Thank
I've
you,
received
Autumn. Commissioner Murphy. Commissioner Savage and Vice Chair Hancock,
Yes.
did you receive them? Yes?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Okay, so it looks like
Okay. All right, we ready?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. So this first item we have for you here is an updated resolution regarding the potential zoning code amendment to the to promote urban agriculture. Next slide, please. So you may be wondering why this is back. There's a little background on what brings us here with this item tonight. In September, the Planning Commission held a public hearing and did make a recommendation to the City Council recommending the adoption of this draft ordinance related to urban agriculture, and included certain revisions that were in the final resolution as adopted by the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, we subsequently discovered that there had been a piece missing from the item that went to the Planning Commission, and that included the provision to allow certain land use, child daycare, daycare centers with a use permit in the open space and recreation zoning district. That was strictly through a clerical error on my part, and it was not an intentional omission. That provision to include a daycare center as a potential use with a use permit in OSR has been part of the discussions related to this urban agriculture item throughout all of the discussions, previous iterations of this draft ordinance, and any meetings that have been just, where there's been discussion. It's always been a provision that was included in there. So the intent of tonight's item is to correct this omission through an updated resolution, which is really just addressing this single piece, updating the land use table to include the child daycare center use in the OSR zoning district. Next slide, please. Just a little bit more about this particular issue. So the goal of allowing the child daycare use in OSR is to allow youth educational programs at Veranda Folletti Ranch. And that is youth in all grades from pre-K, pre-kindergarten, all the way through 12th grade. The intent is not to actually operate a daycare center, but to be able to offer educational programs. And looking at the land uses that we have on the books, this particular land use is the closest to getting us to where we would need to be to allow those kind of educational programs to happen at Veranda Folletti Ranch. So as I'd said, the proposal to include this piece has been included in all of the previous discussions in this year, along with the tandem proposal, which is to rezone Veranda Folletti Ranch from neighborhood low density to open space recreation. The Planning Commission has supported both of those concepts in a previous version of the draft ordinance that came before you in March of this year. And again, in September, supported the rezoning of Veranda Folletti Ranch to OSR. So the resolution that's attached to this item includes child daycare center as a revision to the draft ordinance, and also includes the revisions that the Planning Commission approved at its September 19th meeting. Next slide. So with that, we recommend that you hold a public hearing and consider an updated resolution recommending that the city council adopt an ordinance amending the zoning code to facilitate local food production and urban agriculture. And I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Okay, so my understanding is that this item is only to look at the daycare center addition to include it in the zoning code. Because when I reviewed the comments from the public comments we received, there was a lot of different questions about other items that are not related to this. And so I'm not sure if that's something that would be at the city council, because they'll be approving the zoning code and this process, the ordinance.
So what staff is bringing forward is this one piece. However, my understanding is that the planning commission, if it wishes, may have a broader discussion of the proposal. You passed a resolution which is would be forwarded to the council tomorrow night when they review the full ordinance again for the first time in this iteration. But should the planning commission choose to make a different recommendation, make any adjustments in what you're recommending, you are fully able to do that.
Okay, so I'm not sure if there's any questions from any of the commissioners, or else we can go to public comment.
So I think we have our hands raised.
Oh, there is? Oh, I don't see any hands. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I see Vice Chair Hancock, then Commissioner Moore, then Commissioner Savage. Okay, Vice Chair Hancock?
Well, Commissioner Moore had hers up first.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I don't know how I missed that. So Commissioner Moore?
So I just had a question. So this doesn't preclude a daycare going there. It just, because that's what the zoning would be. So if in the next couple of years, a daycare wanted to go in, it would be allowed.
So I think
I just basically want a yes or no answer on that. I know all the other things around it, but bottom line, in the next couple of years, if a daycare wanted to go in and it was a permitted use, would that be permitted?
That would be entirely up to the planning commission, because it would require a use permit.
Okay.
And the city council, because they would have to agree to the license agreement to allow childcare at the location.
Right. Another thing that's really important to keep in mind is not only do we have a work plan with Farmster and Sandy Loam for the uses of the site, which is, as Noah said, would govern that. There's also a conservation easement on the property, which would not allow the operation of a daycare center.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Savage?
Yes, I believe this resolution includes changes that were brought up in the last meeting on September 19th. Are you able just to recap what those changes were? I think there were 3 or 4.
Sure thing. Okay, so here's what we revised to the resolution the resolution passed on September 19th included the following. One was to specify that community garden rules that relate to pesticides, herbicides, rodenticides, or synthetic fertilizers, use of those be stated in the management plan that the garden is required to submit to the city. Okay. The second is to require that produce stands and garden stands adhere to state of California and County of Sonoma regulations related to safe retail food handling and obtain a City of Cotati business license. And I actually want to add one update is that subsequently, it was brought to our attention that actually there's a business license exemption for for sales of agricultural products that are grown on site. So in this case, the business license would be moot for that particular item. And then the third change was to allow a certain section that allows sales of incidental items at produce stands. Okay, that was where there was a provision to allow up to 10% of items not produced on site to be sold there that were more like commercial packaged items. And so that was removed in the Planning Commission's recommendation. And so in the current version of the resolution that you have tonight, there's a fourth revision, should you approve it, to add the child daycare center as a land use with a use permit in OSR.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then Vice Chair Hancock.
Yes, hello, thank you. So just wanted to confirm there, you're saying that for a business license or for a property that is putting out a stand for just items that were grown on their property, a business license wouldn't be required.
That's correct.
So great, good to hear that. So the other thing is just why is this all in one large? I'm just trying to understand all the different parts of this, but we've got everything from farming to the urban agricultural standard to everything to do with the Folletti Ranch Park. It's all wrapped up in one ordinance resolution.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I can speak to that, Chair Hancock. So what you'll see in the general plan report that is coming as the next item is direction to rezone Veranda Folletti Ranch to allow operation of the demonstration farm because it's currently zoned residential. And so the city donated the property with the condition that it be used as a demonstration farm to benefit the community in perpetuity. So staff started looking at the mechanisms to allow that to happen. And we essentially had two options, either rezone it to parks, which is open space recreation, or create an entire new land use category that exists nowhere else in the city, which would have been agriculture. So we made the decision to rezone it open space recreation park. So it'll have the same zoning district as all the other parks in the city. It allows the operation of the demonstration farm. And then it also allows flexibility to be used for other things. Should the license agreement with Farmster or some future entity kind of begin to anticipate other things going on, such as childcare, supporting education that's already written into the license agreement. Separately, there was direction in the general plan to expand on the allowable agricultural uses and support them throughout the city. And so staff saw two directions of policy making in the general plan, trying to be efficient in our use, put these things together at the direction also of the city council, which asked us to prioritize the supportive agriculture elements of the general plan and put together an ordinance to make changes to allow more agricultural uses allowed in the city. For some reason right now, Cotati allows animal keeping, but not crop production in the zoning as a land use. Staff's not aware why, but so we're trying to respond to all of those things, hoping to push a lot of various policies across the line and get them decided.
Thank you. So one last sort of question, and possibly this will lead into a discussion later on. I certainly read the letters from Roy Smith and Kath and Jenny Blaker, and I certainly think that the ordinances are very restrictive for home-based producers. And particularly, I just want to ask a question about the intent of having only 2 days a week. So I mean, for me, farming, and I do a little vegetable garden. I mean, you basically work with the seasons. You've got to work with, and hopefully the rain and other things, but primarily it's the seasons and when things are happening. So this is saying that there's a restriction for just 2 days a week for putting out a farm stand. And I'm just wondering, why was that phrased as 2 days? I can understand that we don't want a permanent one all the time there, but why 2 days a week only to sell for produce that will go off, especially organic produce, versus just 2 days a week when you can't sell? So I mean, what was the intent, and what's the disadvantages of just doing 2 days a week where you can't sell rather than 2 days a week when you can?
So the much of what is in the draft proposed ordinance right now is based on very specific feedback that the staff received from the city council at its workshop in June on this topic. And before that, as you know, in March of this year, we had a previous iteration of the ordinance come forward. And it had some provisions within it that were much more open in terms of how many days a produce stand could operate. And there was quite a lot of input that the city council received regarding concerns about neighborhood impacts due to produce stands and garden stands in the neighborhood, basically in residential zoning districts. And the direction that the council gave to the staff in June was pretty clear that their concerns about neighborhood impacts led them to want to limit the time and days of operation of produce stands. And that's reflected in this draft ordinance. The concerns are related to traffic and noise, visual impacts, various impacts that might come from some sort of a business operation in a residential neighborhood. And seeking to limit that is basically seeking to limit the impacts that might occur to residents.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Savage?
Was there any conversation about making the limits based on hours of operation instead of days a week? Like they could operate 16 hours a week or something like that would give them more flexibility?
That actually did not come up. No, that's an interesting option.
Thank you. And Vice Chair Hancock, is that a new hand up or is that the last one? Okay, so my question on that is if I recall something about that we had brought up this before about if we have it only for 2 days a week, the same thing that Vice Chair Hancock mentioned about some food, might go bad or something if it's not sold within that week until the next time. But if I recall, maybe there could be some sort of collaboration with other farm stands where possibly some vegetable that doesn't get sold or produce that doesn't get sold in one farm stand, they could collaborate with a neighbor or someone else that has a farm stand. Is that a possibility? Do you know? I'm just trying to see what other kind of options there might be.
Yes. And so that would be an option, because what happens is that, there is an option in this ordinance for adjacent properties to place their produce for sale at a market stand. And so, if a neighbor has produce and it's not their day to operate a stand, or they don't want to operate a stand, their produce is going bad, conceivably, if they have a nearby neighbor who is operating a market stand, then they could, or a garden stand, that they could go and bring their produce there. There's also been, discussion about having some kind of a produce stand at Veranda Folletti Ranch that would be some kind of a clearinghouse, if you will, for produce grown within the neighborhoods in town that could be brought to the ranch to be sold at the farmer's market there, kind of an aggregator.
Yeah, that would be good as this develops to have other options so that, I would hate for food to go bad. This is a good project, and that would be good to look at those ideas. And one other question that I saw based on some of the comments that we got is the hours for mechanized equipment. So I know some people work 9 to 5, so they might need to do a little work after. So does that mean, what's the definition of mechanized equipment? Is that like large tractors, or is that like weed eaters, kind of small equipment? Or is there kind of a definition that delineates mechanized equipment versus smaller equipment that may not be as impactful in the community?
Well, so what is in the draft ordinance right now is mechanized equipment is allowed as long as it's what you might typically find on a residential property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, presumably that relates to, light equipment, weed whackers, hedge trimmers. I don't know exactly what mechanized equipment you would actually end up using in that application. My mind goes directly to leaf blowers, obviously, but hopefully they won't be using very many of those. But that, because of the residential stipulation there, that would rule out tractors.
Mm-hmm.
Or large earth moving equipment, could allow rototillers potentially, and but that I think would be probably the largest piece of equipment you would have, and obviously a rototiller is not going to be used all the time, and but then there's also the hours limitation as well to further mitigate any potential impacts from mechanized equipment.
So like a weed whacker or a leaf blower could only be used until 5 o'clock during the weekdays?
It was related to the gardening use, yeah.
Okay. I think someone had mentioned sometimes people use those type of equipment even after 5 o'clock on a regular residential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I will say that the discussion about the use of mechanical equipment and potential noise was a lively discussion in front of the council, both in March and at the June 30th workshop. And the hours limitation and the limitation to equipment you would only find in a residential application is directly a result of feedback that we got from council members.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so if no other commissioners have any questions, we'll go to public comment.
To our attendees tonight, please use the raise hand icon to speak, or if you're dialing in, use *9. Jenny Blaker, go ahead.
I understand the main reason this has come back to you this evening is because of the language about the daycare center being left out. And although daycare center seems rather strange, a rather strange term to use, it seems that that is what is essential for allowing the educational programs and opportunities for children to have hands-on experience learning about and working with plants and animals. And that without that wording, the ranch would lose a lot of the potential that it has as a valuable resource for Cotati and neighboring communities, schools, and other groups. I understand like Sandy Loam, which is using it now, would need to have this language in there. I assume it would, to be allowed to go on doing what they're already doing. So I certainly hope that the language will be approved to allow and promote educational programs for children and other people too. That seems essential. So, and then I don't know if it's too late to comment at this point when there've already been so many discussions, but just reading through it all again, it seems to me that this is incredibly restrictive and doesn't really facilitate local food production, but puts up all kinds of obstacles to people who want to grow and sell food, whether it's, kids selling extra fruit or eggs or something on a little table outside their house during the summer, or somebody really seriously trying to set up a market gardening or community supported agriculture project on a bigger scale. For example, saying that a market garden can only be half an acre, that seems incredibly small. The setbacks seem to be unnecessary and difficult to work around. The garden stands only being allowed for 2 days a week. That just seems crazy if the point is that people should be able to grow and sell fresh food to their neighbors. And also the fees and permits, I'm glad to hear that they wouldn't need a business license, but it just seems that all the requirements are being piled on and making it very difficult for anyone who's trying to seriously do this. And I was interested to see that there were farmers who made the same comments in a more detailed way than I have. I just happened to trying to imagine what it must be like and how difficult it would be to fit in with all these requirements. So I just think this is making it very difficult for anyone who wants to grow and sell local food, and it would be such an asset if people could. Thank you very much.
Lori Ann Barber, go ahead.
Thank you. My comments are very similar to Jenny's. I feel very supportive of moving forward with whatever's needed to allow for educational programs for children to happen at the Veronda Folletti Ranch. And again, as she said, I don't know if it's too late for all of this, but in reading the comments and things, I'm also dismayed. I feel like the ordinance isn't really trying to promote agriculture in Cotati. It's trying to make it so hard that it looks like we're saying it's okay, but it's not really. The 2-day-a-week thing, I mean, as a consumer, I would also be like, oh, is that open today? Is it Tuesday, or were they open on, wait, which 2 days can they be open? So even from the consumer standpoint, I think that's sort of, could be challenging, but for the farmer, I think 2 days a week seems unreasonably limiting. And, just to some of your, if somebody's a farmer, then maybe they can find some other farmer whose stand is open a different day. And how does that benefit the community? If there's actually stands open, if they're close enough to each other, it's like, oh, well, you might as well just let somebody be open. I just have this feeling the city is not going to be overrun with farm stands and so much business and traffic that it's actually going to be problematic. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but in any case, it seems very restrictive, many aspects of it. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for your time.
Chair Lemus, that'll end public comment.
Thank you. Thank you. So now I'll go back to the commission to see if there's any final questions. And I don't know with the ordinance if there's a resolution. I didn't see a resolution or anything, or is it just for us to just agree on an ordinance? I'm trying to see what the action item is for this.
The action is a resolution, and it reads very much like the resolution that the commission approved on September 19th with the addition of those revisions that Commissioner Savage asked about, which I mentioned earlier, and I can reiterate those if you want, but the resolution is in the packet. And if I may, Chair Lemus, I want to just bring one additional item to, or not item, but I want to make one more comment to the council. I'm sorry, yes. Commission. So related to, you did have some discussion on September 19th about the 2 days a week and the limitation there. And rather than include a direct recommendation to the council on that topic, you did make a request to them to have some discussion at their meeting tomorrow night. And if you'd like, I can read to you what I put in the staff report related to that. Would that be helpful? So that sure. The commission can be reminded of what you asked the council to do.
Sure, okay? That would be good.
Okay, so the staff report says the Planning Commission requested that the City Council consider whether the 2 day per week limitation on garden stands is appropriate in light of the possibility that seasonal produce is often ready for harvest on a more frequent basis and should be sold shortly after harvest. The commissioners felt that allowing garden stands to operate more days per week would allow produce to be sold when it is fresh and reduce the loss of produce that does not store well. Okay, so tomorrow, thank you. So that's part of the report going to the council tomorrow night is asking them to look at that again.
Thank you. Yeah, I know we had discussed it, so that's good that they'll be receiving that information. So Commissioner Savage?
I just have one question. When I listened to the video of this discussion on the 19th of September, I thought that there is a process if someone wants to operate a more full service market stand, that they can apply for that process. It's a larger market stand and has different restrictions or processes around it, and that this is more geared towards a hobbyist type of a garden. Is that correct?
You're correct in that, yes, there is a different option available. It's what we call the produce stand. So in the residential neighborhoods, in all the residential neighborhoods, it's proposed that one could have a market garden and accessory to that, a garden stand, okay, with the 2-day-a-week limitation. In the RR, rural residential zone, currently, one can operate a larger scale farming operation, which we call crop production, has fewer limitations, and one can also, and that's with a use permit, and one can also operate a produce stand and with a use permit. And you're correct that is the size limitation is less restrictive. It's a 400 square foot limit, and there are no limitations on days and hours of operation for a produce.
So if an individual has needs for that type of a facility, they're able to go to take advantage of that.
Yes, if they're in the rural residential zone.
Okay.
And further, this proposal does, the draft ordinance does include a provision to extend that to the RVL, the residential very low district as well. Okay. And I do think that just related to the half-acre limitation in size on a market garden, one thing that is likely is that where one might have a market garden in those more dense residential neighborhoods, one would be less likely to run into the half-acre size limitation becoming a problem. And if one were in the RR or RVL zones, one might have a larger property, and then they might choose the crop production option instead without the half-acre limitation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners have questions? Vice Chair Hancock?
Yes, not a question at all, but I think we're in the discussion phase of this, if that's okay. I definitely support the aspect of the inclusion that's in here for childhood education, and I do really appreciate that we're putting forward again, or it'll be in the report to tomorrow's council about the 2-day-a-week. I certainly see that something like this is that combination of somebody who might have a hobby, but really they're trying to learn what it's about. And so I think, the critical thing is that 2-day-a-week is just so restrictive for if you did manage to produce something, you're not going to be standing out there on the stand, and it'll be very vulnerable, to a good neighborhood. So I really would hope that the council would look at that and just think about it. And we've got that in writing. So I'm unfortunately not very happy overall, but it is the way it is. And I have been through a lot of the discussions, and at times I don't really feel very comfortable with this as being Cotati, but that's what has been put in writing. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Savage?
Would it be appropriate for us to revise that and have a more specific recommendation as opposed to just say we think you need to reconsider?
You mean the other items that we discussed?
Well, just the hours of operation.
Oh, the hours of operation. It sounds like that was kind of discussed at the city council level, and that's kind of what they as a kind of a final hour of operation they come up with after public comment. But one of my requests is if we can send the public comments that we received today, the items that came in after the agenda was posted, to the city council so they can receive the same information that we received, if that would be helpful. Could staff forward that to the city council?
Yeah, they've been forwarded. Yeah. And based on our snafu tonight, I'll double check. But yes, we did forward on all of the comments we received on all of tonight's items with the general plan item as well. We forwarded all of those onto the commission or the council and vice versa. So we did get some comments to the council that we sent to you as well, to the commission.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like what we have right now, there has been robust discussion at the city council. So, as far as the mechanized equipment, the hours of operation, all these different items that we've been discussing that the public has brought up. So that would be good to send that over to them. So our next step then is the resolution, getting who wants to make a motion and read the resolution and a second and forwarding this to the city council for tomorrow's meeting. Does someone want to make a motion on the resolution?
I'll make a motion that the resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Cotati recommending that the City Council adopt amendments to Title 17 Land Use of the Cotati Municipal Code to support urban agriculture by amending Title 17 Land Use by amending Section 1722.020 allowable land use, parking and loading, number of parking spaces, animal keeping, outdoor displays and sales, residential accessory uses and structures, application preparation and filing, limited term permits, notice of hearing, and definitions, adding the section on community gardens and market gardens and urban agricultural standards, and changing the zoning of the 175 West Sierra Avenue, Veranda Folletti Ranch property from neighborhood low density to open space recreational.
Thank you. Does someone want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. And then can we get a roll call vote?
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
Commissioner Savage,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hancock,
Yes.
Chair Lemus.
Yes. Thank you. That passes on a 5-0. Okay, so the next item that we're going to is the general plan annual progress report.
Thank you. Okay, good. All right, so we will be providing a report to the commission on our annual progress reports for 2019 to 2021 on progress and implementation of the general plan goals. Next slide, please. So as the commissioners know, the general plan is a document that identifies the city's vision for the future and provides a framework for decision making. And our current general plan was adopted in 2015. And you also know that annual progress reports on the housing element of the general plan have been required on an annual basis, sent into the state. For many years, that's been a requirement. This is a new requirement for reports on the remainder of the general plan. The first year that the state requires an APR or annual progress report for all of the other general plan elements starting in 2019. And essentially, the state views this APR as a tool for the local jurisdiction's use. It's a status report to inform city leaders and community members about progress towards the goals in the general plan and to guide decisions that the city may be making on work plans and budgets. For example, the capital improvement program or CIP might be informed by a report like this about how we're doing on the general plan goals. So the current APRs that we are bringing to you are for 3 calendar years, 2019, 20, and 21, combined into 2 reports, and that we'll be submitting to the state. In the future, the APRs will be submitted on an annual basis in spring of each year based on a calendar year. Okay, next slide. So the elements of the general plan that are not the housing element are quite a few. They include the circulation element, community health and wellness, community services and facilities, conservation, economic vitality, land use, noise, open space, and safety. And within each of those elements, there are a number of goals, and within those goals, there are objectives, policies, and actions. And if you've seen this, if you look at this report, it includes the implementation plan where all of those actions are compiled in one place. And you can see that there's quite a few of them that are these actionable items in the general plan that we're meant to be pursuing as we can over the life of the general plan. And we're using that implementation plan, which appears in the back of the general plan document itself, as the format for our APRs. Our department, community development, gathered information from all the other city departments on progress on each action within the implementation plan during those 3 years to inform this report. Okay, next slide, please. So within the implementation plan for the general plan, there are really two primary types of actions, and you'll notice that in going through the report. You have your ongoing actions, which might be things like services that the city provides, maintenance, partnerships that we maintain with other agencies, data collection activities. Those are all examples of some of our ongoing actions. We also have the project-oriented actions, including capital improvements, new program development, and completion of code updates and policy updates. There are also some of the goals or some of the actions within the plan that are kind of a hybrid of these two. The level of specificity and complexity of the different actions varies quite a bit. And sad to say, COVID has really impacted the city's progress on the implementation of these action items over the past few years. Work has been suspended and then resources have been reallocated in some cases. And so that has slowed us down somewhat, and we see that in the report. What are we going to do with this report? Following the Planning Commission and City Council review, we're going to submit these reports to the State Office of Planning and Research, and we'll probably start on the 2022 report almost immediately. Okay, next slide. So we recommend that the Planning Commission receive this report from us on the annual progress reports on general plan implementation for 2019, 2020, and 2021. And we are available to answer questions related to the reports. I will note that we don't have all of the department heads here tonight, so we'll do our best to answer questions you might have about specific items, action items in the report. We may need to get back to you if we need to check in with other departments to actually get answers for you. We may need to come back with that, but we will do our best.
Thank you. And for this item as well, we received about 5 public comments items after the agenda. So, and those were forwarded to the commissioners. So hopefully people had an opportunity to receive them. So we'll go to questions from the commission. I saw Vice Chair Hancock's hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, thank you. I was trying not to be forward on there, but I have spent quite a bit of time on this. I mean, I really appreciate that the city is putting this out and being requested to do it or required to do it by the state and stuff, but I think it's a very useful tool to do that. And obviously, there's a lot of work in here that is impossible. Well, it's just amazing to read through it all. But I have one difficult area that I want to ask questions about, and that's to do with the circulation and with some of the activities in the plan. So we are here on a planning commission forward looking. We do have a pedestrian and bicycle aspect to it. So, this is questions that have been raised by, I guess, people writing in. Linda Paget, who raised issues very succinctly about the sequencing of the work with the general plan. Jamie Zemmel, who would like to see the BMP updated. Jenny Blaker, who had some good maps of potential connections. Deborah Hammond, who had a personal story about walking out there. So I have this very specific question that we have a context that we're operating in of Sonoma County and also what's going on in Cotati. with the West Katati connection, and we have a approved now design for the West Katati interface with Highway 116, but we don't have anything within that area that has been defined as a potential walking connections. So I understand that there is requirements by the state to do upgrades, which would be along Highway 116, but at some point that design has to go for a review by Caltrans, and it's just will potential pedestrian crossings, which we don't have identified in writing, be something that's part of a review. So the City Council has declared a climate emergency resolution. It doesn't appear in this general plan, quite obviously. We have done other work in these areas. So my question to staff is, for this area of really trying to make Katati or make future parts of Katati for the northwest section, how does the process proceed with identifying elements of walkability, and particularly how to that Highway 116, how can that be crossed? And if we have senior living, which we approved in 2019 on that side, how do we make it safe for people to be able to move into the West Katati Avenue? How do we visualize this? How do we put in plans something that might be able to be recorded by Caltrans when there's a review? So that's sorry for the very long question, but I did put this question to staff beforehand in hopefully a more succinct form.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in on this because it touches on multiple elements. So Chair Hancock, you're absolutely correct that the general plan and the bicycle pedestrian master plan, which ideally are in alignment, and the bicycle pedestrian master plan informs the circulation element, they're out of sync in that the city had previously last done their bike and ped plan the year before they updated the general plan. And for some reason, the general plan update did not fold in all of the bike and ped master plan elements. That being said, the city has street standards that live in a different document, but I'll have it shared in the future, of the Public Work Design Manual. So that shows all the different street sections, which means, sidewalk, planter strip, bike lane, travel lane, center lane. That's a half-width development standard for all different types of streets. And then the zoning code says what types of streets are most appropriate and what types of zoning districts. So to answer your question, when a private development project comes forward, we do have ways to determine what type of frontage that private development has to build in order to build out the pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure in addition to the roadway. And that's based on the street standards that we've already designed, and those live in the engineering standards. And then the zoning code, which says which of those standards is appropriate for what zoning districts. And it's based on the amount of traffic that's anticipated in neighborhood, urban, residential versus, Gravenstein Highway is commercial district. So there's that portion of it whereby private development has mandates put on them based on the type of project, their location, informed by the zoning and public works standards. Then we have a separate, bigger picture process, which I think is what you're referencing with regards to the contract that the city council just authorized to design what the frontage improvements of Highway 116 is going to look like from Redwood Drive to Alder Avenue. Because I think you rightly are identifying that that's a very unique street section that our current standards may not correctly address or adequately cover all the various competing needs. And so that contract's been approved. Fair and Piers is a very, very well respected traffic engineering firm. They will be designing the frontage of what those streets will, or that section will be required to build out, whether the city does it as a public project or whether private development projects build it out as a part of their development.
So my question specifically is not about what's already there, but about what could be there if we provide the pedestrian linkages, pedestrians travel in routes. So it would be from West Katati Avenue to some of those routes in Hellman Lane. So how do we capture that to inform this junction design?
Well, I think if we think about, okay, what street types would be built in all of those different areas, we could envision what type of bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure would be required should a private developer build them. And then similarly, if we were to do it as a public project, we would go through a public process to gather input on what's necessary, and it would be informed by those existing policies and designs we have. But the missing piece, which I think you're getting to, is the bicycle pedestrian master plan, which tries to connect the regional pathways, how they would enter and exit Katati, and ensure that our internal circulation gets people to those locations.
Thank you.
And let's see, who was next? Oh, Commissioner Murphy.
Yes, maybe somewhat of a similar type comment, but I just wanted to connect the dots between the proposal here for the general plan annual progress reports. And then from what I was able to quickly read from the public comment, I think all of the public comment I saw was related to pedestrian and bicycle plans. And so I was curious how or if we'll be able to connect the two between these progress reports and updates, where we'll see that connection with the pedestrian and bicycle plan.
Well, I'll take this too, because I think some of the frustration from the comments that's coming forward is just the city's lack of progress on bicycle and pedestrian master plan update. So we committed to doing this in 2019, and then we've just frankly struggled to get traction and capacity. We were thinking of doing it in-house with no funding. I think in the early times, maybe that was 2020. Then obviously we've had a few other shifts in priorities since then. But now the city council put funding in the current fiscal year budget. So that's 22-23. So we're almost halfway through that fiscal year. And the last time this plan was done in 2014, the Sonoma County Transit Authority, SCTA, and the county essentially did the plan for the city. The city had minimal to zero outlay of funds and essentially was able to participate in a wider regional process that was being undertaken, I think, because a grant was received. We are now in a time frame where SCTA is starting that process again. And so while we do have some funding, we feel that it is appropriate to join in their process again to basically magnify the money that we have now to leverage this broader process, and also to ensure that the current city focus also has that regional perspective and connectivity. Because I think, as Vice Chair Hancock has pointed out, in order to really get people out of their cars, you have to provide a circulation network that's both internal to the city, but then has connections outside to where people may want to go to other communities that surround us.
Okay, so am I right then to assume that the progress reports that we see will comment on things that of course will affect the pedestrian and bicycle plan, and then moving forward we may see more information about that as we kind of dive into it a little bit more aggressively in the future? Am I understanding that right?
That's correct. So if you look at the elements related to public works and the capital improvement program that are in the report, it shows some of the things that were identified as priorities and then that were built out. This new bike and ped master plan will have a whole new list of projects that then Public Works will incorporate into their CIP as budget is available and start to build those out. And then I think, I keep pointing to Chair Hancock, but because he's very thoughtfully commented, city will also look for opportunities to connect to those more regional trail opportunities in the surrounding areas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore?
Yes, so my comments are on page 102, and it's about having some kind of historic districts in Katati. And for me, I'm glad that I saw this and it's in progress. I know we saved the building up at Kessing Ranch, and I see other historical buildings in Cotati that I just think this is an important part of our heritage here, is not only knowing these buildings, but preserving them in the long run. So I look forward for this being more in progress, where it's just maybe not just an incentive, but an historical district or historical naming of buildings. I know there's one that has a metal facing that is very original down by, I think it's Sweet Peas, and not a lot of people know about. Anyways, I mean, I think this is more, when I look at Petaluma, they've preserved a lot of their buildings in Petaluma over the years. And I'm hoping that we progress in that. But those are just my comments on this.
Okay, thank you. So, and I saw that when I was looking at the general plan that you do have the ongoing, you have things that are complete, and then you have in progress, and then you have priority A and B. Is there a way to put timelines or anything on here? I know that, there's so many different items and they're all in different states, and the plan is more of a larger plan, so this is just looking at 1 year at a time. But is there a way, or is there a need for some of these items that we can put some sort of a timeline or date or something on it?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question, and I think it's worth noting for both the members of the public that are here and the commissioners. So while we have this very comprehensive list, kind of a to-do list of things necessary to implement the full vision of the general plan, which is a 20-year vision, every year we meet with the city council on their goal setting, right? And they tell us what their goals should be for allocating staff resources and funding for the next fiscal year. And so those staff typically meets internally to start assessing where we've been, what we've accomplished, and then also what we know we need to do as a part of maybe state mandates or some other needs that have arisen. And we start to present that to the city council through goal setting in late winter, early springtime. So I would just encourage everyone here to think about their priority list, talk to their council members, show up to meetings, speak publicly, write letters and comments to us to help inform what our priorities should be for the next fiscal year. And then to your point, Chair Lemus, that will help us tie timelines to certain of these projects. The council has considered going to a 2-year budget. If that were to occur, then we could expand that timeline out from a single fiscal year to potentially 2, and allow kind of more comprehensive perspectives on how some of the funding gets allocated, hopefully to get some of these things accomplished.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So we'll go to public comment now and see if there's any comments from the public.
To our attendees tonight, please use the raise hand icon to speak, or if you're dialing in, use *9. Jenny Blaker, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a T-shirt that says "Think globally, act Cotati," and tonight is an opportunity for the Planning Commission to do just that, both in terms of the Food and Ag Ordinance and also this one. As per the letter which I submitted yesterday, the bike plan and the general plan and the county bike plan need to be in sync, so that there's more than just the bare legally required minimum in terms of pedestrian and bicycle access when you're looking at things like working with Caltrans on Highway 116. Locally, the main Laguna Trail through Cotati is very well used and very much appreciated, especially during the early days of the pandemic when the gyms were closed and even the parks were closed for a while. Everyone seemed to be out on the trail. The signage project has been very helpful in letting people know about connections between one point and another. I have met people who live one side of East Cotati and didn't know that there were trails on the other side. Well, there's a similar network of trails in Northwest Cotati that very few people seem to know about because Highway 116 forms such a barrier to get up there. These are the trails on the water agency access roads along the Laguna, Gossage Creek, and Washoe Creek. And they are or could be another fabulous resource for local people who like to walk and bicycle, including with children on quiet, safe trails away from vehicle traffic. But how do you get there with Highway 101 and Highway 116 acting as such effective barriers to non-motorized traffic? There is also, as you pointed out earlier, a network of trails that has the potential to connect at a regional level along the Laguna to Sebastopol and then to the West County Trail to Forestville and so on. And all of this is on the county bike map, but not on the Cotati bike map. So we need to be thinking both big picture and locally about how to make these kinds of pedestrian and bicycle routes connected and accessible. And to have the plans in place so that Caltrans, for example, can know what Cotati's plans and intentions are. I also wanted to just point out that the trails are not only a geographical connector to help people get from place to place on foot or by bicycle, but they're also an incredible social opportunity. I'm forever bumping into people I know, friends, acquaintances, or even starting conversations with people I don't know on the Laguna Trail. And it would be great to see more of that kind of happening along those trails in the northwest quadrant of Cotati as well. So just encourage you to continue to work on the bike ped master plan and getting all these plans aligned so that we can get the grants and do the work and everything to get that work done on the ground. Thank you very much.
Eris Weaver, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Eris Weaver, I'm a longtime Cotati resident and executive director of the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition. I realize that tonight's meeting was receiving a report and doesn't have any action about forward plans, but I did want to just check in about all the different intersecting plans with sort of an observation and a question. First is I was very delighted in 2020 when I first heard from staff that the city was looking at doing an update on the bike pound master plan internally, and I actually offered to work with the city pro bono on helping make that happen, which obviously has not moved forward. And in staff's comments earlier, it wasn't 100% clear to me, but it sounds like you're going to just participate in the overall countywide plan along with SCTA. Now, I know that they're just barely getting started on that, and I don't think the timeline for completion for that is until 2024. One of the reasons that I've been very encouraging of jurisdictions to get that plan done sooner rather than later is, as we all know, projects have to be in the plan in order to get certain pockets of funding, and the standards and the different types of bike facilities that are out there have changed in the years since that last plan was made. For example, class 4 protected bike paths were not a thing when the old bike and ped plans were made. So it's important to get those things updated. I'm also really wondering, when is the overall city general plan supposed to be updated, and hoping that we don't get into the same thing that it was mentioned about having happened before, where one plan got done, the other plan got done, but the earlier one didn't get incorporated. I know right now Petaluma is working also with Fair and Piers on both their active transportation plan and their general plan updates simultaneously so that they feed into each other, and that could be a really useful way to go too, to get some economies of working on two things at once, but also so that they're all consistent with each other. And I have lots of other thoughts about all the other paths and things, but I'll save those for another time. Thank you.
Chair Lemus, that will end public comment.
Thank you. So I'll bring it back to the commission for any questions or discussion that the commission may have. Vice Chair Hancock?
Hey, hate to go again first, but again, I just want to, itemize or list what I've heard up in the year that's come up, that there's, for this junction, there was a $2 million budget or $2 million grant that was received, a line item, I think, and that's fantastic. I mean, it's great staff are actually doing, making this effort or finding these opportunities to do it, and obviously that was a purchase of a piece of land. But I just see that, and the new projected budget for this junction is $5 million. So, I mean, I do appreciate staff's view on this, and that it has slipped. I still don't understand why we had an announced plan in 2021 that just then couldn't be implemented. I mean, there was obviously something going forward, but here we are now at the end of 2022, and hopefully this will go forward, but this will be a junction that is $7 million when it's actually of money that's spent, and I just don't feel that there will be a clear reference or a clear input to Caltrans. And I mean, we're making comments here, public have made comments, they've made comments in 2 previous meetings as well, so how does this actually get incorporated in a way that Caltrans will pay attention to it? That's what I'm not hearing. And that's when I spoke to Caltrans in 2019, that's what they basically said, is that it's got to be a documented direction, either city ordinances or city resolutions, not planning commission resolutions. So that's my comment. I mean, I appreciate the opportunity here that staff is putting this forward, and I think we're making this work by commenting on this one aspect that is not very visible. I definitely support Lisa Moore's aspect of the historical side. It's really nice to have a little bit of history, and I know the Cotati Historical Society has been active. I recently met one of the active people in that, so it's nice to see. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other commissioners have any discussion or questions? Okay, so I don't believe that there's an action item on this. Is there anything staff for us to do other than just receive the report?
No, all you need to do is receive it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now the next item is reports by staff.
Thank you, Chair Lemus. Just quickly, tomorrow's election day, so please everyone go vote. We have some changes coming to the city council as 2 longtime incumbents are stepping down, not running for election. And our chair, Lemus, will be elevated to the city council in the very near term. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
There's Vice Chair Hancock will be stepping into that role. And then the commission will be asked to vote on a new chair and vice chair. I think it's at the first meeting following that ascension or changes of the council, but also maybe after appointment. So we will be needing a new planning commissioner. So please encourage interest and talk to folks out there to apply. There is an application available online from the city clerk.
Is the application process already open for the vacancy that will be coming?
I'm not sure if it's open yet or not, but I can find out, and we'll get it going. I imagine it will be out in the next couple of weeks if it's not currently.
Thank you.
And then I just also want to point out we are going back to in-person meetings. So City Council has voted to do that. So starting in November, the second meeting of November, 2 weeks from today, will be our last Zoom Planning Commission meeting, because the City Council has voted to meet in person on the 22nd of November, and all boards and commissions after that date are going in person in the council chamber. So just be aware of that if you're in the public, and then reach out to City Clerk if you have any accommodations you need with regards to going back to in-person meetings starting in December for us on the commission.
Okay.
With that, I don't have any other department items to report today, but I'm happy to answer any questions if there's anything briefly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so any reports by commissioners? Okay, not seeing any. We already went through the items received after the agenda was posted. We already addressed that one. So after that, then it's just an adjournment. Any other questions before we adjourn? Okay, so we'll adjourn the meeting then. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Jillian.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Record.